is Al McGee with YETicket.com. I got two guests I am so glad to talk to because they just did this film, this documentary called Bastards Road. And we got the star of it. We got John Hancock in it, but we also got the director, producer in this too, Brian Morrison. He's here to talk to us also. So let me start with John. John, you're a veteran, and you went into Iraq in 2004, 2005, yeah, 2004, and you were one of the first ones to be deployed there, but you were in the most dangerous part at the time. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Sure. We didn't actually know that Ramadi was going to be the epicenter for what it became. Of course, Ramadi is the only Sunni province in out of the entire 16 provinces in Iraq, and it became a funnel for foreign fighters coming in to fight from Syria and other places. And so when we got in there, there was something called SASO operations, which is stability and support operations. And so we're walking around and, oh, you don't have any water? Okay, let's write that down. And maybe we can help you with that. And very quickly, and actually the anniversary of that battle is coming up here on April 6th. April 6th, the entire city kind of fell around us. And we were, every Marine, it was one battalion of Marines, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, known as the Magnificent Bastards. We were engaged in full-fledged house-to-house, street-to-street fighting, and that lasted from April 6th to about April 10. And then after that, it was constant gunfights daily for the next 7 months. And so we got there in February. March was a little bit of combat. We had seen our first casualties in March, right around March 19th, and then we saw full-fledged combat where we lost a lot of guys starting April 6th. So over the total of the 7-month deployment from February to September, we lost 34 Marines or 33 Marines and one Navy corpsman, and then over 300 wounded, which turns into a 1 out of 4 casualty rate.
Wow. And as a young man, you didn't expect to see this, but when you were in it, were you afraid?
You're crazy if you don't think fear plays a part in combat. I don't think I've talked to anybody that wasn't afraid, but you utilize that fear in a manner that helps you progress through combat. You use it as a tool to keep you alert, to keep you
Right.
sharp, and to keep your boys sharp. And so, yeah, sure, I was afraid, absolutely. But I think I was more afraid for my boys to die versus myself.
Right.
And that was the thing that really, really kept me as sharp as I could be, is to try to bring all of my boys home. I was fortunate as a squad leader to bring my entire squad home. Some of my brothers are not that fortunate, and we've lost a lot of guys. So some of those squad leaders and some of those platoon leaders can't say that same thing.
Right.
And so that's just that's the nasty part of war. But yeah, sure, fear is a factor in combat, and anyone that tells you differently probably didn't experience it.
Yeah, right. Well, Brian, you got involved with his journey, and then you turned into this documentary. What made you interested in his journey, and then turn into this great piece of film, Bastard Road?
I'd always been kind of curious about the military community, not being a veteran myself. John and I had a connection. We both went to the same high school.
Oh yeah.
Around the same age. We share a lot of mutual friends. We hadn't actually hung out or anything, but we were. John was familiar with me through our mutual friends, and when I became aware of his walk, as he kind of had walked probably almost 2,000 miles before I had reached out, I was just struck by what he was doing, and maybe there was a part of me that kind of saw myself as like we both went to the same high school around the same age, and kind of seeing myself, if that was me in a way, or if I had served, or some part of me was just just I was drawn to him in a way. I mean, it was inspiring to see the walk, to see how committed he was, the resolve. And reading those little newspaper articles or the 2 or 3 minute local news stories that he was featured, it just wasn't enough for me. I was compelled to want to know more. I had been a video producer around Baltimore, Washington, D.C. area for about 10 years. I had all this equipment, and it just felt like I could use the things that I had to help John share his story in a bigger way. And that was kind of really the beginning.
Wow, that's great, because I never heard anything about it. I did not pay attention to the news when it happened in 2015. And John, when Brian reached out to you, were you hesitant at first, or were you enthusiastic about him wanting to put it on film?
Brian had called me when I was in Slidell, Louisiana. So my best friend, who's going to be my best man at my wedding here in 3 weeks, was his next door neighbor. And so Brian called me, and my buddy David said, "Hey man, Brian's going to call you, and he wants to talk to you about something about filming some of your journey or something." So I was a little reticent, and then when I got on the phone with him, we immediately hit it off. And Brian was, Brian and I went to the same high school. He was a year ahead of me. He was a jock. I was a pothead. We didn't never meet. That's how that goes.
I know what that's like.
Right. So we never spoken, but we instantly kicked it off, and there was an amount of curiosity on, I think, both parts. And then to see how Brian was willing to listen to me and listen to my story, and wanting to tell more of it, I gave him a chance, and I flew home I was in Lubbock, Texas. I paused the walk. It was probably a month after this phone call, and I paused the walk and flew back for a VA appointment. And as well as any of us, if you miss a VA appointment, you're going to the bottom of the stack, and they'll call you in 10 years and you can try it again.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I didn't want to miss that appointment. So I flew home, and fortunately Brian lived about a mile away from my folks' house. So I just walked over there one morning, and I sat on his child's little play slide with a black background. And he interviewed me for 2 hours. And after we kind of felt each other out for those 2 hours, I said, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's see where this goes."
I'm a little curious. You mentioned marriage. Are you marrying Christian or someone else?
No. So Kristen and I, we are good co-parents together for Colden. Absolutely.
Okay.
But no, I actually, when I moved out to Phoenix to finish school at Thunderbird School of Global Management, I graduated December 17th of 2019.
Right. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It was something I needed to do for myself. But I met Miss Tiffany Hallier probably about 6 months after moving to Phoenix, and we've been together for 3 years now. Actually, it'll be our 3-year anniversary over our wedding weekend.
Yeah, just to let people know, there's some great moments about you and Christian in the film, and they have to see it to see what happened. But I was very curious who it was myself.
Right.
Now,
absolutely.
Brian, yeah, thank you very much. Now, Brian, as you start filming this, did you walk along? I mean, I'm sure you had some vehicles too with the equipment and things like that. But as he was taking this journey, did you fully understand what he was trying to do and what he wanted to do?
It was definitely a process of me kind of learning on the job as it was. Like I my first trip out to see John was in Nebraska. I was out there for about 2-3 days. I would fly in to the closest airport that John was near. He would send me a GPS pin, when we were getting close to a period of time that I was available to come out. I would throw as much camera gear I could put into a rental car, and then I would track down that GPS pin on the side of the state highway and look for the guy walking with the red Marine Corps flag behind him. As soon as I found him, we would film for a little while, and John would keep walking, and sometimes I would walk with him. Sometimes I would just put everything back into the car, drive a few miles down the road, and it was just like minutes he was there, and I have to, get another couple shots and do it all over again. Um, the isolation, the loneliness, the courage to like kind of go to war with your own self out on the road struck me. I think in the first kind of the first understanding of what John was doing, that's what I would think about him on the road alone. Sometimes looking at different landscapes, whether it's the grasslands, mountains, cities, towns, wherever. And my mind would just wander about that, that psychological battle that, John had, committed to doing. But I think when the journey transitioned for me was when I was invited into the homes of one of his Marine brothers,
Right.
and I saw the story evolve in a way of like, okay, this is the story. This is reconnecting to people that maybe John hadn't seen since he got out, and for me, it just seems like that's just one of his best friends, and not understanding that he hadn't seen him in 10 years. I mean,
Right.
it's for anybody else, they would just assume that they were best friends, or they had, just long lost, just they had never not been in contact with each other. So I think that was really striking to me, is that closeness that they had with each other. And I think I would be, I'd have to say about how impressed and amazed I was by by them to allow me into their homes, given just John's word that, hey, there's this video guy coming to videotape us hanging out together, even though I haven't seen you in 10 years. There's also this cameraman coming. Is that okay? And so I was just amazed of their willingness and trust to let me into the door. And that all was based on the trust that John and them had. And, it was just amazing to me.
Yeah, I understand. And John, that's part of the film that kind of make me almost, I got emotional about it, because I miss many of the guys that I served with, but I have not been in touch with them over 40 years. But you seem like you all were next door neighbors when y'all got together, and you all was happy to see each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't replicate those feelings ever. Those are genuine feelings of just brotherhood and love for each other. And anytime we see any of them, I'm fortunate enough to have quite a few guys from the film actually come out and be in my wedding.
Oh, that's great.
There'll be a lot of big hugs, and there'll be some beers shared. But it'll be a lot of big hugs and a lot of fun. And it's just anytime I'm around another Marine that I've served with, my cup hath runneth over.
Also, let's go back a little bit. Now, one of the main reasons you started walking and things like that, because you had to deal with a lot of your mental problems because of combat. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. I had gone down a really bad road after getting out of the Marine Corps. So I got out in 2009. September 21st of 2009 was my last day. And I immediately enrolled at University of Maryland and double majored in Arabic and Russian. I already spoke those languages, so I figured I'd phone it in. And I became a barfly very quickly. It was very easy because my house was 150 feet from the bars. So I would walk to the bars after class, or I'd go home and I would drink. And at my worst, I was drinking 3 bottles of Jameson a night and then walking over to the bar. My first DUI came probably 2 years after getting out of the military. My next one came a year to the day of the first one. And then after that, it was the cop for some reason. I still don't understand this to this day. The cop didn't arrest me. He booked me and then drove me home to my house.
Was he a veteran?
No, he was getting up for he was gearing up to go take the SWAT exam. So I'm not exactly sure why he did that. I just don't know. But I blew a .294. So I was still lucid. So that just shows you how much I was drinking. When I got the second one, I realized I was a detriment to my family. I had let my family name down. I'd let myself down. I wasn't a good father, and I decided I wanted to end it. So I went inside and swallowed as many pills in my medicine cabinet as I could physically swallow, realizing quite a few minutes into that endeavor that my stomach started cramping and I really didn't want to do this. I drove myself, while still drunk, to the VA hospital in Baltimore. That's usually a 45-minute trip from College Park. I made it in about 17 minutes. I was cooking. I had an Audi that I bought after getting out of the military, and so it was fast. I get into the psych ward. They pump my stomach. I go to the psych ward, and I realize that uh, maybe I didn't need to be there. I had seen other veterans in the psych ward that were uh, they were different than I was,
Well,
and
you assumed they were different than you were.
exactly, exactly. I had assumed that they were different than I was, and that maybe I didn't need to be there. And then I saw the news was playing one morning. This was November, so December of every year is the Army Navy game, and that year it was being played in Baltimore because they usually flip flop between Baltimore and Philadelphia. That year it was at M&T Bank Stadium, and there was a guy named Mike Vitti who started a nonprofit called Legacies Alive. He was walking across the country, walking 1 kilometer for each person that had been killed in Iraq or Afghanistan since the '01 kickoff. And so I realized that was something that I needed to do. And I didn't know how. I was 308 pounds. I was massive. When I got out of the VA hospital, I bought a mountain bike from a buddy of mine for pennies on the dollar. And I rode a mountain bike for 10 months. And I went from 308 to 198 pounds. And then said,
Mm.
okay, now you can walk across the country. And it was just this weird laser focused mission that my body was telling me I had to be on. And I had to go visit my guys that I served with. I had to go visit the Gold Star families of our fallen. And I just had to do it. And I didn't know why. There, just something inside me broke and said, "You're doing this, and you have to do it." And all of my Marine Corps brothers were super supportive. My family hated the idea. We got in some pretty nasty fights about it. My
Really?
dad was not having it. He was not happy. But now after finishing it, my dad has become my biggest fan, and it's heartwarming to see that.
And also let people know that your dad was a commander in the Navy on
Yes,
a
absolutely.
submarine.
He was a commander in submarines for 25 years.
Yeah. And your mom seemed very supportive too. When I saw her on film too, I was really glad for that, that she was
Yeah.
still supportive of you when I saw the film. Now, Brian, when you were shooting this and you were meeting his families and friends and things like that, did anyone ever tell you that, well, I don't want to be on camera, I don't like this, or anything like that? Was there anybody negative about that, Brian?
You know, I just recall how, open and and welcoming I was into that world, and I just would just constantly being struck by how about how open they were with me being there. And I break that down to just trust and faith in the brotherhood that John and those guys have with each other, to let in this stranger with a camera that exposes such personal and such personal emotion and memories.
Right.
And so yeah, it always boiled down to just being amazed by the trust and faith that they had in each other, that gave me the ability to have that kind of front row seat to what was
And
going on.
Brian, also, this is show business. Now, was it hard for you to sell this film to a distributor? Was it hard for you to say, hey, look, this is what I put together, this is what happened? Uh, well, can you help me get a distributor? Can you help me with this so we can make some money?
Yeah, I don't think it's easy for anybody. And us, I started this project, pretty much by myself on the
Right.
road, and with Mark, feeding footage back home to him. You know, we worked in this tiny little silo and didn't really have access to funds of a big production company or studio. And you know, that's a lot of how docs are made. You know, they start with passion, and you know, we had a lot of that, and we just kind of pushed through. And yeah, it was a fight to get noticed, but you know, we developed a good, strong team of people that believed in this story. And I think that's, you know, that was really encouraging. And I think that's what led us to this point of being ready to share it on May 11th with everybody, is a strong group of people that feel compelled to want to help this story get out there.
Oh, yeah, that's great. And Jonathan, two last questions. First of all, why did you wear the Marines flag? I know you're a Marine. Is that you wanted people to know you were a Marine? And the last question is this: did people really believe what you were doing, or did they think you were just crazy?
I didn't start with the Marine Corps flag. I picked it up in Gulfport, Mississippi, and visiting one of my corpsman brother, Doc Beaton. And prior to that, I had picked up a walking stick in Gatlinburg, Tennessee,
Hmm.
and so I wanted everybody that I visited to carve their name into that stick. I still have that stick. It's at my folks' house.
Oh,
It's for
great.
safekeeping. And someday I'll mount it and display it. It'll be amazing. Um, but I just, for some reason, I was like, well, I'm just gonna wear the Marine Corps flag, and you know, maybe I won't get screwed with as much, or maybe people will ask me about what I'm doing. But I just really, I love the Marine Corps, and it's something told me to buy that Marine Corps flag at this flea market, so I bought it, and then I just strapped it to my pack and never thought anything of it, and actually created some of the coolest encounters on the road with just veterans that were, I mean, veterans would lock up their wheels and just come
Hmm.
back and be like, what are you doing?
Right.
Because I'm in the middle of absolutely nowhere. And people, at the beginning, I didn't have a good flow of how to speak about this. And so when I would tell people about it, I sounded like a crazy person because I
Hmm.
couldn't get out why I was doing it, or I couldn't formulate it correctly. And so I would just rattle on for like 10, 15 minutes, and you could tell people were like, "Oh, okay, man, like you have a good day." But
Really?
as the journey kind of morphed, and I learned more about myself, and I learned more about my brothers and about the Gold Star families of our fallen, that message started to tighten up, uh, and people would gravitate to that message. And so while people still thought it was crazy, they were also pretty impressed with what that crazy kind of drove me to do.
Well, uh, this is the final question. You said you learned more about yourself, but you done graduated from the university,
Mhm.
and now you're getting married. What was the main thing that you learned about you, John? What is it
Uh,
about you that you really learned?
my process for handling my memories was to talk about it, and that it wasn't the coping mechanisms of drugs and alcohol and women or whatever that is. My bare bones process is to open up to others and to tell them what I've gone through, and that is what helps me work through my traumatic memories. And doing that, coupling it with an amount of physicality every day, was my recipe for success.
Wow, that's fantastic, man. Much success to you. And Brian, final question. This is about, again, show business. How do you think people are going to feel about this documentary? And what do you want them to take from this documentary, this film, when they finally see it started on May the 11th?
Myself, I'm so excited for the release and for people. I think the general takeaway is, almost to John's point, is talking about it, continuing a conversation. You know, I think there is some critical context that John and his brothers and the families um, give. in this film, and I would hope that I think there's too many stories that oversimplify, the challenges and the struggles that our veterans come home with, and I would
Yes.
hope that this gives an opportunity to have a more raw look in their own words, at their own time, in their own way of explaining, what it looks like, and I think that if people can be more open to just listening to them on their own terms, without judgment, without even thinking about what to say in return, I think that we can all learn a lot, and we can all grow as a society and be better suited to welcome everybody back home into a civilian world after war.
Well, I want to thank you guys for taking time with me, Al McGee at yeticket.com. John, I want to thank you for doing this. I really do. I really enjoyed the film Bastard Road. And
Thanks, brother.
And it brought me back, but also it made me realize who I am. And Brian, thanks for putting it on film, and so we can be exposed to it, so we can see it. Much success to both you guys. I want to thank you very much. Please, much more success.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having
Albert.
us, man. Really.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting me speak.
Oh, no problem. I love to talk to you more, but
I know, brother.
have fun at that wedding.
Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be fun.
Oh, yeah. It will be.
Yeah. It'll be a
Take
good
care.
time. I'm looking forward to it.
This is your entertainment ticket. Latest and greatest.